Hello everyone, Kenty Tiger here with Bengali Engineering and Play. We are back in Space Engineers, continuing on with our second Space Engineers Survival series. This is kind of the conclusion, I think, of the base building. Um, the reason for that is I really can't think of anything else this base needs. Um, so one of the things I did off screen here, um, I had to reboot a couple times. There was I couldn't even begin to explain it. It 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 was a really weird bug that everything you could build in the assemblers needed silicon. So not sure how that happened. Um, and it would fill up the assembler with silicon to the point where you couldn't actually build anything because it was full of silicon. So you couldn't bring in what you needed. If you dragged the silicon out, um, then it would just pull it right back in. So I have no idea what that bug was, what was causing it, or anything. The good news is the reboot fixed it. So once I rebooted, then everything was good again. I'm having some trouble. So one of the Huh. So one of the problems is I think you can only have one auto crafting setup. It looks like that's all you can do. So what I wanted to do is have it on two different sides, and I don't think I can do that. So I'm still having to learn how to do the autocraft thing. Pretty straightforward, but I'm just going to have to learn how to make autocrafting work. Um, Overall, so far, given the problems that I've seen folks have with Teledins, this looks to actually be very effective. So um, the reboot also fixed a few things, I think, with that I don't believe were related to the script itself. I think it was just for whatever reason, Space Engineers was being Space Engineers. So one of the last things I did was opened up this back area, and the reason I did that was I hollowed out all the way back, and the only reason I didn't continue on out was because I needed to hollow out this one wall. So I went ahead and hollowed that out, and then I took the time to put up the 800,000 more blocks, and here they are. So it's not perfect. I'm not going to extend the build and repair systems back here. I just don't see the point. Um, they technically they could reach back here because it's a 75-meter limit. So if I were to park things back here, I think I would still be close. It may not be too far, but in the end, I move stuff forward. So obviously, this is a really big room. So I'm not sure there's any advantage to having anything here. The goal here was to have all of the equipment and everything on the sides, which I accomplished. So I don't really think there's any need to continue stuff down. If I ever do, then it will give me a reason to come back and do things. So I have storage here, and whether it's enough storage, I don't really know. 6 large containers seems to be enough. There's 2 sorting containers here that ultimately will not contain anything, and then there's this input container here. So I think everything looks pretty good. I've got oxygen and hydrogen generation systems here. These I think are still green. Yep, they look green. So it looks like all of this is pressurized here. While I could do little kind of minor configurations here and there, I really don't see the need. So I've got storage. I've got quite a bit in storage. Let's go ahead and have a look here. yeah, the point some of it's actually ridiculous. 14 million gold, 37 million of silver. So clearly, I've got a lot of stuff. Thrusters, 916k. Seems to be working, but the numbers are not matching. Which maybe that's okay. Computer 12k of 65k. Thrusters 9. I thought I made thrusters. Maybe not. So, one of the things. Here's what I think we'll do. So this thing here needs to be named. Okay. This was me being stupid. I was pasting ships, which I'll show you here in a minute. All right, so that was my screw up. So this is so I can see what I need to have. Auto crafting. LCD sort group. Okay, so sort group is what I need here. That really is. It's just going to tell what's going on here. This is going to be in LCD sort group save. And we're going to turn that off on the terminal. So, yeah, that's what I wanted there. All right. So what happened here was when I deleted that, this one was also deleted, so I didn't want to delete this one, but it deleted by way of mirroring. So 8, change color, okay, and there's So one of the things with the auto crafting, so this is auto crafting 1, and this one is going to be named LCD auto crafting 2. So what this is going to do is actually span between the 2 LCD displays, which is something new. And this here is sort 1, and I think let me go ahead and put this back on the terminal because I think I named these incorrectly. Sort 2. So, yeah. So everything in the sort group, so LCD sort group will actually have the same information on it. So remove from the toolbar and take it off the terminal, which will have all this information that basically is, what's going on with the machine. What's it doing? No. So no blueprint. It can't actually make these the 25 millimeter round, which is to say my 25 millimeter rounds. All right. So the hand drills. Also be nice to figure out how to make the bottles and keep spare bottles. Maybe that will be something worth doing. And we just queue up some stuff. So production, this actually shows up under hand tools, and then let's do 10 and 10, just to keep a certain amount of these on hand, and we'll see. Makes them pretty quick. Hopefully that will update with the bottles. So I'm not seeing them in the. There we go. Hydrogen bottle, oxygen bottle. I do see them now. So. Interesting thing. So, angle grinder number 4. I'm going to go ahead and say 0. Grinder 3, I'm going to go ahead and say 5, and 0. Automatic rifle item. So my guess is there's actually we can't even actually so rifle 2, I'm guessing here, rifle 3 item, and then rifle 4 item would be all my different rifles. So this will be a 0, this will be a 0, this will be a 0, and this will be a 5, or maybe 10. Nah, we'll do 5. Hand drill. gonna take a little while. Medical, let's just because we'll go ahead and do 500 of those, and oxygen bottle. Let's maintain 25 and 25. Now, if all goes well, it's going to interpret what these things are and actually create them. I hope. So it looks like it is. Yep. Alright. So the only weird thing it did was removed the hand drills and the automatic rifle. Ultimate. Okay. So apparently the rifles are called multiple things. Forgive me for eating here. I'm just starving to death, so I had to go ahead and eat. Well, strange. Wonder if let's see what that what was the 9 thrusters. You know, thruster components, you really need quite a bit of them when you really start going. So I think 15,000. All right, let's see what this does. Yep, queued 'em. There are actually some really neat aspects of this whole thing that are really cool. The fact that you just change it on the screen and then poof, everything goes is really a neat feature. So, I want to find out what this ultimate automatic rifle is. Obviously, it's called something different. So, let's go into inventory. Rifle. Yep, so it is elite. Alright. No. So hopefully, if all goes well, which it looks like it did, so total inventory management here. So it actually filled up the bottles and then maintains them, which is cool. The other thing it seems to be doing is, if it's not on the list, it will actually take it, dismantle it, and bring it back to you, which is actually kind of cool. So proficient grinder, elite grinder, elite drill. Should build more of those, which it did. Yeah. So if you steal them, it rebuilds them, which is just cool. That's awesome. Um, so 2,500 rounds. I'm going to go ahead and take 500 rounds, and then hopefully it will start replenishing. Yeah, it does. So this is actually really cool. Um, the fact that it um, figures these things out as well as replenishes things according to what you set is really a neat set of features. So I quite like that. Very simple to set up, which is another really awesome thing about it. So all right. Again, I think we're done with the base. The base has ample storage. We actually have a lot of stuff here. We are maintaining explosives. I can do that from here. I truly did not think about explosives per se. I think those are explosives. Just because I'm going to go ahead and have it queue 1,000 of those. So it should figure all this out. Thrusters 15 or 16K. So let's go ahead and explosives should have come in here, and it's building. So let's go ahead and edit text, explosives, and we're going to maintain 1,000. Apparently, when I queued those, they did actually queue, but then they stopped, which may have just been because it wasn't on the list. So, working within the quirks is actually kind of unique. Obviously, just learning how something works is really. So I'm not sure how many of these I really need. I guess just because 1,000 is a nice, unique round number, then why not? All right. So the bottom line here is, I guess. Some of the other things I did off screen here were put in lights. The reason why it's very bright in here right now, but when I rebooted, I came back in and it was actually almost pitch dark in here, which is to be expected. So there's some ambient lighting here, which I don't know where it's coming from, so I put lights in. So I'm not sure exactly why that did the way it did, but it did. So. Anyway, the good news is I think we're done here. The assemblers are doing what the assemblers do. The sorting mechanism seems to be working correctly. The cargo teleport seems to be working correctly. If there's anything that I am missing, I think it's actually the teleporter. Which I guess I can go ahead and put the teleporter in. I'm not going to put it in the front because that's where the fighters are. So let me go ahead and look here. So Dummy Industries is where you'll find the build and repair system. And there's nanite blocks is the entire nanite control factor. So that's those things. So this is the large transport pad. So we're gonna go ahead and bring that down. I'm gonna set this up and configure. I hope it will fit. Yeah, so it'll fit really easily in here. I guess I can have it out one. Steel plate. All right. So what I need to do is go over here and cargo system and 7. Do all items to build the pad. Comes back over here. And put it right there. Origin base. All right. So we rename that one. I wonder. So the freighter is what's sitting out there. Sorters. I could systems sorters. So the transporter, crafting 2 can go under systems off. Elsewhere receiver is actually on the freighter. Oh, no, it's not. It's storage 1. So these are all containers, which will go there. Save, off, and off. Obviously, they are. Yes. I'm gonna leave that. Even though it's all right. So right now there's nothing to teleport to, but eventually we'll have something to teleport to. The miner can stay right here. I don't mind that at all. And let me just make sure all the doors here are closed. Not that it really matters. So there's a group here, doors sliding, closed. We'll make sure those all snap to close. All right. Make sure I turn that off. Let's fill up here before we go. And I have a jetpack that's actually powerful enough to launch me into space. It will obviously take a while to get there, but we'll get there. The other thing I could do is totally cheat and so one of the other things that maybe I should do Oh, that was an easy inventory move, by the way. You have whatever it is that you want to build. You go up to a cargo container that's connected in. The materials don't necessarily have to be in that cargo container, but it has to be somewhere in your container grid. And you right-click on it, and it will build for you. So I suppose if I'm being practical, that all easier here. So what is this? Button panel 1. So we'll have 4 button panels. And I'm normally I would name things save. But there's just no point to go kind of totally OCD. So here's the 2 things that I want to do is turn the lights on. So this outer one is actually going to do 3 things. Jump drives because of, yeah, all right. Groups. Landing pad, and that will be an on or off. The main lights is an on or off, and doors, force field outer, closed. All right, so you're not going to be able to see the landing pad lights, but there is a set of lights that go to that landing pad. These are the lights that are inside, which you can turn on or off. Probably not going to see anything there either. And then this actually toggles these doors as to whether they will be solid or not. So when they go blue, they're solid. So that is, and then green allows everything to pass through. So kind of cool. I really am very impressed with these doors. So same thing goes here. We're going to go back to groups. We're going to find doors force field, which now is on this side, so that's going to toggle open closed. We have the lights on the pad, which are on and off, and then we have the interior lights, which are on and off. So on, which I guess I could toggle those because they don't need to be on. All right, and then well, let's check and look here. Leave that on. So this should go blue, which it did. All right, so we know that works. In this case, I'm not going to do the exterior lights. There's just no reason. So we're going to do lights here, which will be toggle on and off, and then we will do toggle open closed. So we should see blue. Yep. All right. And then the last button over here is the exact same thing. It's okay. Go into groups, drag my interior lights, main space lights will go right here, which is a toggle on off, and that one, which will be a toggle open close. All right, so I think that this is, so yes, I want to quick save. I think I will actually take a blueprint of this, which means I'm going pivot tools for a moment there, and we do a Control V. Origin base. Should be that. Yeah. So that is my base. So we have a blueprint. So this was the ship that I was telling you about. Let's go ahead and turn this off before I forget again. This vessel here is a freighter. It was a freighter that was a rebuild of something that was actually, I found it on the workshop. I was, or eventually found it on the workshop. I had been experimenting with, there was several, there were several mods which took basically explorer craft from the workshop, incorporated them into a mod, and inserted them into the game within the scope of cargo vessels. So basically, they functioned the same way as the cargo vessels. Everything, worked the same as the cargo vessels, except you had an extremely large variety. Anyway, I was poking around and discovered this thing, and basically what had happened is apparently it was traveling around and it slammed almost headlong into an asteroid. And it wasn't the fault of the mod, it was that I put the asteroid there. So when it calculated its entry, it didn't know about that asteroid, and eventually it hit it because it was in the way. So it was something that the game could never have calculated, that the mod could never have calculated, because it went in after all the calculations were made. And I just found this thing that was, the front end was partially destroyed, half the cargo containers and everything. I just really liked the way it looked. And so I decided to change from ion thrusters over to hydrogen, and then make a few other changes, and change the ribs, and change how it had the front, and arm it. And anyway, this is what I kind of came up with. I think I actually had a series of doing that. So anyway, that was a small freighter, but very, very effective freighter. So actually a lot of, I think there's 10 medium containers in there. Actually, it looks like large containers. Might be large containers. So anyway. Alright, so the plan here, as strange as it is, I really kind of want to go straight up. And what I think I'm going to do is totally cheat. So I'm going to come over here. And then get in some semblance of lateral, and then whoa. So, okay. So, so the idea is to be about 46,000 away. So, as you can see here, the small freighter. So the origin base and the small freighter now are just about 46 kilometers away. Now, why 46? The gravity well ends at 45. So being about a kilometer outside of the gravity well is a good thing. But most of the antennas have a 50 kilometer limit. So I want to be within 50 kilometers. but outside of the gravity well before we put our station in here. So let me go ahead and do a control space. Oops, that won't work because that is a creative function. Yeah, lots of asteroids out here. F6 will put me back into I got here, and so we're seeing 46. So let me go ahead and I'm going to move out to 48. And the reason I want to move out to 48 we're going to do a GPS right here, new from current position, and this is station location. Alright, so the reason again for 48 is because I want to be outside the gravity well, which you can see here, gravity is 0 and 0. So it's really that planetary gravity one that you really want to worry about. So that is indeed 0, which is what I want. So I'm outside the gravity well of the planet, which is exactly what was intended here. We have an ideal location here. So what I need to do is do some scoping around. Whoa, that's a big asteroid. The other question is, do I want to be somewhere close to the moon, or do I kind of leave everything well enough alone? And so we have some options. Do we want the station within antenna range of the station, or does it really matter? Or do we want to put the station out somewhere completely away from everywhere? So there's a lot of options, obviously. So what we may do perhaps is put a relay satellite up here. And then figure out what to do from there. So let's go ahead and change the GPS here. So let's call this Origin Planet Entry Location. Okay, so that's a great big huge long name, which is great. Just because I'm OCD, we're gonna move those a little bit. All right. So we have this thing here. So we can use that kind of as a GPS marker if we want to. Ultimately, we are very, very close to that 50-kilometer range, so my antennas will still work, so I could decide whether I want to put something up here as some sort of a satellite. I do have various relay satellites. The problem is it's really about transporting cargo that transporting cargo from here down to the station is actually pretty easy, as long as I set up both ends. And I didn't actually set up the station to receive cargo from a satellite. I can do that easy enough if we ever determine that there's actually a need to do that. So, really at this point, what the goal is now is really to find a suitable location for a station. So let me shift back over to, so we've got a couple possibilities. If I look around, we've got the moon over here. We have this planet over here, which I think is maybe the Mars, and let's look. Yep, I think that's Mars. So this is like Mars and Europa. Obviously the original planet there, and then this is obviously the alien planet, and I think Titan. Yeah, so this is the alien planet here. So really the question is, where do I want to put the station? And that's really going to be dependent upon what do I, what's the intention? Do I have the station as kind of home base and keep it near the planet so we can move stuff back and forth? Or if we look here, so this is 5,703 kilometers from the base. All right, so obviously a long, long ways away. Well, I mean, 5,000 kilometers, not very far. If we're talking about astral navigation here, that's right next door. But anyway, this is Space Engineers. It's not supposed to be entirely realistic. So really the question is, what do we want to do? Do we want to do mining on Mars? Do we want to set up a Mars base of some kind? Or do we want to utilize various stuff here? And that's where, and moon, do we want a base on the moon? So how far is that? So 250 kilometers. So we've obviously got a lot of options. So I would almost think if I want to, one of the things that so I had all these asteroids, and I thought these asteroids were supposed to spawn, but they're not actually spawning anywhere. About 1,000 kilometers here. I'm just going to kind of bump into this and then look back here. So 18, which means 9 is halfway in between. So let's, just for fun, um, I don't really have a whole lot of interest in the alien planet. Resources are there, obviously, but so I think we're going to kind of pick this as our base location. So let me go ahead and GPS mark here. Um, so this is station location. And again, we're gonna round these up to perfect numbers here. All right. What happened? Oh, I know why. That actually explains a lot of things. That's why I couldn't see. Uh, that's why rating station. I have all this stuff turned off. I wonder why that's here. All right. Alright, so rating station was somewhere. So this is actually not a true and correct anything. So because I was over there. So what we're going to go ahead and do is now create this one, which should actually be out here. And we can call that station location again. And now we should be able to actually see that right here. Yep, station location. There we go. All right, so the red planet there, we have the sun, so we will be utilizing a lot of solar out here. And really it's just a matter of putting together my intention here, and let me go ahead and open this window, is to really utilize a lot of parts and pieces that I have built in the past. So large landing pad, okay, definitely not that one, so I don't need that one. Large solar array, so here's a huge 161 panel solar array, so we might actually use that. Launch platform, I don't know why I have that there, so we don't need that. I like that, but it's too small. So this is a small landing pad with an airlock assembly already built on, partial airlock assembly. So we might be able to utilize that. This actually is a completely different type of landing pad. So this is basically an airlock assembly that is one of my standard airlock assemblies, and there's probably going to be a few pieces missing on this because of the way it was designed before. Um, this one actually is using different connectors. I think it actually had an extendable tunnel on it. So, you know, a lot of things I don't think would work here. So this one had a bunch of airlocks. So there's the airlock on the end where you can see the connectors. I know that's really, really small on your screen. And then there's actually two different landing pads. There's one on each side, which has an independent airlock out there. So it's actually a really neat unit, but it does have its limitations. So this one may actually be practical. Put this in 4 directions, so one on each of the cardinals of the station. So this may be something to utilize. Large tunnel, I like it, but not going to work within this. Okay, landing pads. So this is landing pad A and B. I do like these landing pads because they are pretty good sized and they're configured as an A and a B. So I could actually just change the names and become A, B, C, D if I wanted to. So this may be something worth using. The nice thing about these is they're already set up for my 3 different conveyors. So the pull-in, the supply, as well as the fuel ice. So not too bad. Glass passage. Now I built this for a particular station, and I really do like this. So what my thought is I might build the central station, which doesn't necessarily have to be really, really big by any means, and then I would have these tunnels built, which would go out from the central station, and then connect in. So the question is, do I do something that's like a octagonal? So I come off the cardinals and the offset cardinals and actually end up with, you know, like 8 landing pads, which of course building diagonal can always be a challenge. It's a lot of fun to make everything line up how you want it to, whereas if you're coming directly off the cardinals, you just, you know, it lines right up. So things tend to look a little bit strange. So definitely going to be using that. Docking tunnel. So here's a docking tunnel with the piece there, and I know this one is not going to work well either. And this is the same kind of a thing because I utilized I utilized the different kind of connector, and I really liked the connector because it's a dual purpose connector. You can connect small ships onto it with a small connector as well as large ships with the large connector, and you can connect the small ships with the large connector onto it. So it's a multifaceted connector. I really liked it, and you know, it works. It's got a model of its own. It's an older model. It was not updated for the new stuff, so it still looks like an older model, but it functions. So I kind of stopped using these a while back. I like them because they're symmetrical. They kind of fit better in all the different holes, but they're still not airtight, obviously. So anyway, I don't think I can use that for a couple reasons. So let's go ahead and delete that. Glass passage, definitely want to use that. That one is not going to work for the same reason. Defense platform. Okay, so this this was something I actually used on the ground. So that's so the defense platform. It was stuck in the ground, and you had supply lines which ultimately supplied the Gatling guns there, and then you had a shield system. So the shields were there. So not entirely applicable to what we're doing, so I think I'm going to go ahead and delete that as well. So we have these pads, LCD panels, because I always use LCD panels, 160 panels. The problem is I don't know what those are. Are they my panels or are they regular game panels? So that's going to be, let's go ahead and make that, because solar panels are actually pretty easy to build, especially if you turn creative modes back on and do it. So what I think I really want to do is oops, I can't use that. I know there's going to be too many pieces there. A small landing pad, which I think this will work out well. In fact, let's go ahead and bring one of those in. Yeah, okay. So let's have a look and see what this looks like. So the reason I'm looking in here is I want to see what the cameras are. Camera connector. Alright, so panel 40. I may be able to utilize this. So two things that are important is that it uses, so in this case it has all three of my normal conveyor systems. Okay, so the red, which is the pull-in, and the supply and the fuel ice. So it has all these. And it actually has all three of those out here, so you could connect on out here if you wanted to. This one happens to be the supply. And in fact is upside down because of so these conveyors, they're the armored conveyors from Prosimian, and I actually really like them. The problem is they did a pretty major change when they changed the models, and some of the models actually reversed. So if you had used the armored conveyors prior to this model change, then this is a T right down here, and the T actually reversed. So there, in this case, there was a connector here, because I don't have that particular connector turned on anymore is why it didn't show up here, so that's why I got that warning. And then there was the three connectors on the front here that are also gone. I like this pad format because I can land stuff on this. So I can utilize it fairly easily, I think. Now the challenge here, let me go ahead and bring this in, and okay, I've strayed over my hour. Last passage. So let's go ahead and put this thing in. So I put it in upside down. So let's go ahead and flip this over. Let's align it with, there we go. So, okay, I completely wrong direction. But that's okay. So let's. So this is just so you can see it, and I'll go ahead and turn myself over. So the real idea here was this whole glass assembly. So it's a 2 slope to the 1, and then another 2 slope down here. And then I added conveyor through, so there's a conveyor on the top and a conveyor on the bottom, and then I encased it. So you can see kind of what this looks like here. And I really liked the design. It actually has batteries built in. It has air vents built in. So it was designed for a contained environment. So you can see the batteries here. So there's a battery in each end, and then there's as you can see inside here, and there's a window here and a window on the other side. At least I think there's. Oh, no, it's just a window on this side. So it is a completely contained environment in there, and then would open up into this environment on this side. So there's upsides and downsides. The upsides are I like the design. This bottom section isn't necessarily something that works perfectly. It is kind of odd looking. So if I were to really remove that and only have, in fact, let's go ahead and, okay, my creative stuff is turned on anyway. So let's go ahead and just for fun, remove this lower section. So let me go ahead and yeah. So this may completely whack this thing. So this may be something, and the reason I put that bottom section on there was actually for protection. So what I could actually do is something similar here. So this was, and really the other purpose for it is that I wanted conveyor above and below. So having that conveyor and I mean, this looks really nice and has a lot of visibility. So let's go ahead and go in here. I like the visibility. So if you imagine yourself walking along here, there's really a lot of really neat visibility here. And this is even besides, I could change these bottoms to just be the plates and not have these side pieces. So if I wanted to change things up a little bit here, not put air in, or actually possibly change these conveyor junctions out with the conveyor air vent, then I would have an air vent at this level. I would most likely remove the battery. I could actually put another conveyor here, put the catwalk on top of the conveyor, and then it would only be this size. So I may actually consider doing that kind of stuff here. So I think we're going to leave this one as is for now. Um, ultimately, um, because I need to get all three of those conveyor systems through, I may end up just having to redesign something. Now, do I need a 2 wide, or could I do this with a 1 wide? And what I may be able to do is actually have, one of the conveyor systems on top and 2 on the bottom. Um, so, I mean, I could do a lot of really interesting things. I could run the 2 conveyors here on each side and keep it this 2 hide thing. The biggest reason, a little hard to see, but this is actually vanilla. Um, so it was actually made with the intention of being vanilla. So if I change things, and it wasn't bad. I mean, I like this kind of flare at the bottom, although it does cut down on the visibility. So there is that. Um, so if we're looking for the pure visibility aspect, then there may be some reasons to go with something different. So, but anyway, ideas, discussions, and all that sort of thing. So I really am just wanting to, kind of figure out where I'm going to go with all of it. I want to introduce. There's an elevator I found from a VCL or something like that. That was actually really cool. You can have up to 9 different floors over the span of up to 100 blocks, which I thought was really cool. So you can set as many blocks as you want, and it figures it all out. So I thought that was really cool. So what I wanted to do is figure all that out. The problem, the reason why I didn't load all that stuff in was because of problems. It just space engineers being space engineers. So I've got a lot of things that I want to bring in, and I think I actually will. So what I'm going to do is close down this video, because obviously I've run way over time, and then we'll load some more stuff up in the world, and come back in and then start redesigning some of these tunnels. So this tunnel, I think maybe even a little bit shorter than I want. I like tunnels. I love tunnels. So I like this one, but maybe having something a little wider would be kind of cool. So anyway, this is Kenty Tiger signing off. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.